Hello everyone, Cypem here. For the last 2 months or so, I've been carefully picking the parts for my new gaming PC build. So my ultimate objective for this gaming PC build is, of course, I must be able to use it for streaming and gaming as well. So for gaming is primarily I will be playing StarCraft 2, but it's only on its lowest setting. But but of course, I will also be playing some of the AAA games as well. And I will be also doing some light editing for this PC build. So what I will do is I'll be unboxing every component that I bought, and I'll try my best to explain it to you guys why I chose those parts. Without further ado, let's get into the PC build. First and foremost is the B40M Mortar Max for the motherboard. So originally, my first pick is the Tomahawk Max, but unfortunately, the Tomahawk Max is not available. So I instead chose the Mortar Max, which is available at that moment. The Mortar Max is, I think, it's cheaper around 1k compared to Tomahawk Max. So but in terms of performance is actually I think it's just the same. So I ended up saving maybe around 1k or 1.5. Next up is the processor. So I ended up picking Ryzen 5 3600. So my first pick was originally either 3500 or 3500X, but since the PC that I am building is I'll be using it for streaming, so I needed more power or more core or threads as much as possible. So I switched into 3600, which has 6 cores and 12 threads. Next up is the AMD Ryzen cooler that comes with the processor. So it is the stock cooler that comes with the Ryzen 5 3600. So it already has a thermal phase applied in it, but as I noticed that the thermal paste is quite thin, so I figured that I don't think the paste will be enough. However, we'll be discussing that later on. Next up is installing of the processor. So for that, all you need to do is to find that little triangle or arrow on the, I think, bottom left of the CPU socket, and make sure not to touch any of the gold plates under the processor. So you just need to hold it on the sides. Okay, then after that, all you have to do is to gently put it down on the socket, and it should line up well all by itself, and a little wiggle, and then put down the retention bracket, and you are done. Next up is the CPU cooler installation. So for that, you need to remove the brackets, the two brackets on the sides of the CPU first, and then putting the CPU cooler, then screw it up. After that, I ended up tying the cord or for the CPU power because it's quite long, and then plugging it on the motherboard. Next is the RAM. So for the RAM, I bought the T Delta Force, which is at 3200 megahertz and 8 gig each. So that is a total of 16 gig. Okay, so next is the installation of the RAM. So installation of the RAM is quite straightforward. So for the motherboards, they usually have dual channel. So I ended up using, I think that's slot 2 and 4 if I'm not mistaken. So for installing, you have to loosen up the lock on the sides first, and then line up the RAM on the RAM slot, and then you have to push it with a little bit of force, and then you will hear a satisfying sound, clicking sound, and then the locks on the side will lock itself, and you just have to do it 2 times. For the PC casing, my preferred brand is Techwear, specifically the Techwear Nexus. However, again, because of this pandemic happening right now, the Techwear is not available at that moment, and I just went for any casing, any PC casing that is available at that time. So at that time, the available is a Vikings Shield. The reason why I picked the Vikings Shield because it already has a 3 fans pre-installed on it, so I was able to save up just quite a little for the fans. So I don't have any great input for the casing because I didn't do any research for that. Next up is installing the motherboard. But before all of that, don't forget to install the IO shield first. After that, I tilt the PC casing on its side and install the motherboard. However, not all the screws are on the right position and I have to move some of the screws around. After that, the motherboard has been installed perfectly. After that is the power supply. So I ended up buying the 650 watts Cooler Master 80 Plus bronze rating. I was hoping to buy a gold one, but unfortunately again because of the pandemic right now, the only available is this one. So that's why I ended up buying this one. So this is a modular power supply, so expect a lot of wires hanging around that is unused. For the installation of the power supply, all you have to do is slide it in the PC casing and then screw it up with the screws that comes with the power supply. Next up is the HDD. So for the HDD, I bought a Seagate 1TB. So I only have a HDD and I don't have a SSD. For the installation of the HDD, it's just like installation of the power supply. All you have to do is slide it in and then screw it up. Next up, I'll be installing or putting all the powers to the motherboard. So it has a multiple powers, of course. So I'll be connecting the HDD power, CPU power, of course the main power for the motherboard, and for the power for the installation of the fans, power and reset button, etc. Next up is the graphics card. So supposedly this is where majority of your budget should go. So I ended up buying a Gigabyte 1660 Super. So my main game is StarCraft 2, and remember that I'll be also using my PC for streaming as well. In that case, in line with that, I also play StarCraft 2 on its lowest setting only. So that's why I think 1660 Super is already an overkill for me. For the installation of the graphics card is quite straightforward. All you have to do is to try to line it up first and to know which socket you should remove. And then after that, just slide it in and you should be able to hear a click again and then screw it up. And lastly, I put back the side panels of my casing, which is the tempered glass and the front panel. After that, I brought my PC into my room, hooked up my keyboard and mouse and into the monitor as well, and then everything went smoothly. However, after a few days, I noticed that in my province, there's a lot of power interruption happening. Not totally brown out, it's just the power or the power just keeps turning on and off in just a split seconds. And I know that power interruptions can cause a lot of damage to my PC. That's why I decided to buy an UPS or uninterruptible power supply. With this, I decided to buy a 1500 VA secure brand of UPS. It has 3 outlets which has a battery backup supply and one more outlet with just a bypass outlet. Basically, it's just additional outlet, but it won't have any backup battery. What the UPS does basically is everything that is plugged in the UPS. So in my case, that is the PC and my 2 monitors will still be running after the power interruption. I think it will still run maybe around 10 minutes or to 15 minutes, and that time is just enough time for me to properly shut down all my peripherals. With that, I don't have to worry any power interruption. So another problem that I encountered with this build is the temperature of my CPU is quite high. It goes around 65 to 80 Celsius on its ideal temperature. That's why I also decided to buy a CPU cooler, which is a NZXT Kraken M22. So I won't be able to show you guys the installation of the CPU cooler because I simply brought my whole CPU into the shop where I bought the CPU cooler, and the staff there is the one who installed it for me. But what he basically does is he removed the AMD stock cooler that comes with the processor and just replace it with the CPU cooler or the NZXT that I bought. Since then, my temperature or the temperature of the CPU is quite alright now, and everything is running perfectly. With all the build done and all the installation is done, this is what it looks like. All the PC parts that I bought as well as the prices are all indicated on the description down below, as well as all the peripherals that I'm using with this setup. So with that, I want to thank you all guys for watching, and if you have any question, just comment it down below and I'll try to answer every one of them. Again, if you like this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to see me do some live stream of StarCraft 2, I also do live stream in Facebook, which is also under the same name, Cypem Reel. So again, thank you all guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!